Okinawa, the last battle of World War II. This is a solo game. It comes in a VHS box, which is packed with stuff. Don't let the small size fool you at all. This is one of those games that exemplifies something that I've been advocating for quite a while in wargaming, which is we have so many new mechanics in non-wargaming that is nice if some of those are finally transferred also to wargaming. An example would be in Undaunted that uses deck building to do wargaming. Then we have card-driven games. These days we even have roll and write war games. And this is a Rondelle-based war game, and it's the first time I see this. I don't know if it's the first time it's done. Definitely the first time I play a Rondelle-based war game. The Rondelle is going to be formed by action cards. There are 10 of those. As you can see, they also correspond to slots, numbered places. And you will have your pawn and you will move it around the Rondelle for a certain number of loops, activating the action of the space in which you and your movement. So that's pretty neat because it's also a clearly customizable Rondelle. You can change the order of the cards at the beginning, you will acquire more cards later, and you can use those to replace the ones in the action slots. You can even upgrade some of these cards, so that's pretty nice. When you move from slot 5 to 6, so you pass next to the resupply card, good stuff will happen, but you never actually stop on the resupply card, but you only have a certain number of laps available to you to complete the mission that you're trying to accomplish. What is the mission? To complete 4 objectives. There are cards for those, so you'll have 4 cards, and in a game you will always face exactly 4 objectives. There are multiple cards for objectives 1, 2, 3, but objective 4 is always the same. So I already flipped the card that ended up being selected for this specific game, so it's objective 1. Tells us a couple of things. First, the number of loops, of laps that we have around the Rondelle to ideally complete the mission. If you're able to clear the board of enemies, then you really cleared the mission and you're way ahead of the game. Otherwise, the remaining enemies and cards will fall back, which means you will place them on the side and then they'll come back later. This is the number of action dice that you will have for that objective. Those will be 4. These dice have a 1, 2 2s, 2 3s, and a single 4. We have an effect card that you match it using the ladder and will give us some effect that is in play for that scenario, for that objective. Then we have the number of enemy soldiers and we place tokens there. Each will correspond to an enemy die that will be placed on the board and will represent areas where these people are shooting and therefore where you may get hit. And then here we have other enemy cards. That means here I will place a card of the type D, C, D, and then a random one also in that slot. I'll show you what that means. Remember, we have 2 lines of action cards representing the Rondelle, and in the intermediate spaces where we place those enemy cards. We never place them in the first slot, and so those D, C, D, and 1 go D, C, D. See? No line to you. D, C, D, and 1 is tucked under there. Some cards may also have fog of war tokens, and you place, and it's indicated there, and you place a token there. That means that before you can attack, you need to remove that token. The enemy cards that go there will tell us the type of enemy that they are. Is it soldiers or is it armor? The number of hits that you receive if you are in a position indicated by that card. And so if I end my turn here, then the machine gunner will give me 2 points of damage, and this one will give me 3 points of damage. I definitely do not want to end my turn there. I want to run stealthily and get past that situation there. So, these are some of the main concepts. Oh, also, not only do these symbols tell us the type, say armor or soft target, but also how many hit points, how much damage, 5 in this case, you need to inflict to remove that card. As for these enemy tokens, they can also be attacked, and each has 2 life points. The first hit flips it to this side, and the second hit removes it. So, we basically alternate taking turns, meaning you, the player, take a turn, and then the board takes a turn against you. You start your turn by randomly determining where these people are shooting, and so you roll a die for each token. There will be 5 in this case, and then you place them in the corresponding slots. And so this one will go in 2, this one will go in 6, 7, that's already landed in the right spot, and 9, and 5. Ooh, this is not good. I was really hoping in something else, but that's the way it is. After we determine that those random placements, we get to roll our action dice, and that's what I rolled. That's pretty good, actually. All right. Now, I must spend all the action dice, even if I don't want to. And you can spend each action die to move or to activate the action of the card that you are on. So, suppose I want to activate that action, that is the scout. What it does, it removes fog of war tokens. When you are activating a card, you can discard any one die. The value doesn't matter. So I decide to discard this one, and I perform the action of removing a fog of war token, and I do that. Now, you may want sometimes to use the action multiple times. In order to do so, you would need to use a sequence, uninterrupted numerical sequence. So if I wanted to remove 2 actually fog of war tokens, there aren't on the battlefield now, but there might be, then I could have used these 2, the 1 and the 2, or the 2 and the 3. With what I rolled, I could have even, if I wanted to activate the card 3 times, do that. I could have done that. But if this is my situation, then I can only activate that once. So basically, actually, in a certain sense, you can activate the card only once, but use that effect multiple times. Why is that a distinction? Because when you're done activating the card, all you can do, if you still have dice left, is to move. So back to us, I had used this one to activate that. I remove the fog of war, and now say I decide to use this die here to move. Moving is pretty self-explanatory. You move the number of slots. You move the number of slots there. I'm gonna take some hits here. There's no way around. So I am in that spot there because I moved twice, and now I could use either of them to activate that attack, but I could not activate the card twice. After I activate the card once, I have to use the other die to move, which means I can choose. If I use the 3 and I leave the 1, I could end up here being attacked again in a terrible way. Or if I'm left with the 3 for moving, 1, 2, and 3, I end up here and I only take 1 hit. We'll do that. So I use the 1 to activate this card, which means I can do a damage against armor and a damage against soft targets that are not protected by fog of war. And I'll do that. I'm giving 1 damage here, but that doesn't kill it yet, and 1 damage here, which also doesn't do anything definitive. And then I use this one for movement, 1, 2, and 3. So that's where I end my movement. Now I pass the resupply card. That means I can collect one of those cards there. Each have a token on top. It's placed randomly. And after I collect this card, I can use it to replace a card in my Rondelle. I also get to collect the corresponding token. This one, for example, when I spend it, removes a fog of war. And suppose that I decide to replace this one here with this one. See, now that's more specialized, doesn't hit armor, but it's a sniper, so it gives more damage to soft targets. And that would be how the supply works. So you may see that there is a die there. That also means if there is a die in my supply, I can switch with the die that is there without changing the result. So you have a little more control over your pool of dice. Some cards will require, once you use them, to be refueled, and you refuel them by passing by that card. Again, after I'm done spending my dice, remember, move in or activate actions, you have to use them all. And after that, I take damage depending on the arrows that may be pointing at me and the dice that are there. In this situation, I take 1 point of damage. We start the game with four damage tokens. When I take a point of damage, I flip one that way. If they're all showing skulls, I'm dead. You also start with some tokens. One allows you to reroll. Look at that. One prevents a point of damage. It's the sandbag. So I'll discard the sandbag. And the other one allows me to modify a die. I probably should have used that one, but I didn't, and that's what happened. And again, you may collect other tokens. So this would be the general idea. Roll your dice, spend them to move around the rondelle, activate various type of effects of the cards, such as, again, resupplying, collecting tokens, shooting, attacking the enemies, removing fog of war. And you continue for the indicated number of laps, unless you're able to clear everything. Oh yeah, I told you, when you're doing damage, you could also choose to apply to this once instead of that, which kind of relieves the pressure. So you continue for the indicated number of laps, and then the remaining enemies are placed on the side, and you then will play again, because they'll come back later. One objective after the other, unless you're dead due to too much damage. If you're not dead by the beginning of Objective 4, you play Objective 4, and at that point you need to both survive and clear the enemy battlefield, complete the objective, and that's how the game will end. And this is, in general, how you play Okinawa. So there is definitely a lot of stuff in this box. It wasn't easy to repackage it at the end of the game. And maybe too much of a good thing, meaning that the components are very nice. Those tokens are thick. The art, really like it. Kind of like old school war comic. But there are a lot of little teeny tiny components that you do have to relocate and rearrange all the time. You have to reroll the enemy dice every time. You have to move these tokens around. You set up the new objective with the cards, a certain number of soldier tokens, and then you take 2 laps, which sometimes is not all that, doesn't take all that long. It depends on the kind of dice that you roll. If you roll all the same number, 3, 3, 3, 3, well, you're going to move by 3 and then take an action. Then you're going to move by 3 and take an action. And it's the same if you roll the same with other things. Other times you're able to, yes, I rolled a single number and then a sequence. So I'm going to move and really spend time spamming that card. Which also tells you that there is definitely a random element, which is not unwelcome when we're talking about war games. One problem that I would have is when a war game becomes too much like chess. I like the fog of war, I like the unpredictability. I like wargaming. To me, should be mitigating the odds rather than having a lot of control. The game does that quite well. And I also like the fact that it may seem gimmicky that you roll the enemy attacks at the beginning before you move, so you know exactly what they will attack. But then you don't have perfect control on your movements, and so the effect is still like, it would seem more natural. I move and then they attack me and I didn't know that, as opposed to I know where they're going to attack, but I don't know where I'm going to be, and so the effect remains the same. So I like the mechanics, but again, the logistics, I think maybe this could have been streamlined with 1 or 2 fewer effects, 1 or 2 fewer types of cards, things like that. But past that, I really like the general idea, and I really like the execution, and I really like seeing a Rondelle game, which feels like a game with a Rondelle. That's not nothing, meaning all of the advantages that we see from this kind of mechanic in other types of games. The fact that you can plan ahead, but not too much. The fact that you can sequence things. The fact in modern, I would say modern Rondelle games, that you can upgrade and change your Rondelle as you go. All that is really good stuff and really fun, and adds a lot to the strategy of the game. While at the same time, the game again does feel very and intensely thematic. There is a lot of nice chrome with different kind of troops and enemies that work in different ways. It can be a bit frustrating sometimes. So, man, I need to remove the fog of war and then I can finally attack. Then if I resupply, then I can collect the token. Then it allows me to do that other thing, and I can do whatever it is that there is there. So again, it feels thematic with a lot of interesting mechanics and a nice balance between, again, the randomness and strategy in the terms of using tokens, using dice, using different resources to mitigate the luck and try to pull off some big combos. Again, you will have sometimes that you roll a die and like, okay, this turn I just don't do anything other than walking through the valley of death, and other times like, well, I have perfect control, or almost so, and the two things balance each other out. In general, again, talking about the theme, I really like there's a strong sense of escalation. Maybe the first move or two are not too bad, and then all of a sudden you find yourself moving, yes, through a valley of death where there's just so much stuff flying at you from all directions, but then maybe you're able to find a medic and you're able to do other things, dig a bunker, get those sandbag tokens. A lot of interesting stuff going on. I still have to win, and so the game is pretty challenging, at least to me. But I also have the feeling that the general script is the same every time. You change the objectives, and that means it slightly changes who is going to try to kill you. And sometimes, yeah, there's stuff that works in different ways, but the general script, the general flow remains the same. And so there's a chance here that unless expansions are introduced, the replay value is not going to be very high. And this is my general assessment of Okinawa, Last Battle of World War II.